Okay, there we go. I think we're live now. All right, guys. Hey, good morning. Good morning. It's this is Samantha Studebaker Carl coming at you from beautiful Southwest Georgia, and I'm here with my good friends Dan and Danielle and Sandy, and this is the Saturday Morning Mastermind, and just like to welcome you. Glad to have you guys on today, and tell us where you are in the world, where you're hanging out from, what the weather's doing, whatever. Let us know if you've been here with us before or not, or if this is your first time. We'd love to hear from you. What we're doing is actually, if you're brand new and you've not been watching us before, is every week we get together, or not every week, but most Saturdays we get together and we're studying the book called How to Win Friends and Influence People in the Digital Age by Dale Carnegie. And this is actually this is the second book that we're going through since we've been doing the Saturday Morning Mastermind now for gosh, it's going on a couple of years now that we've been doing this, and we get together every Saturday so that we can, study these books and share each other's, share our opinions about the books and our insights, and just be able to mastermind together and understand these concepts much more, and be able to share them with you so that you get a better understanding of them as well. And we all kind of mastermind together to just help each other. That's the biggest key with this discussion. So before we get into the book here, and I'll tell you what chapter we're in here in a minute, but I wanted everybody to go ahead and just introduce yourselves. So anyway, I already just introduced me, so we'll just jump over and whoever wants to pop out and introduce themselves. And then for those of you who are watching, introduce yourself there on our event page, or if you're watching this on YouTube, comment on YouTube, wherever you happen to be watching this.
Good morning, everybody. This is Danielle DeLyons out in Anaheim, California, real close to Disneyland. Thankful for another nice day. We had a cold front. We got some snow out here. Now we're back to sunny weather again. And excited to be back with all of my friends and be here with everybody else this morning, and look forward to our discussion today.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. This is Dan Smith.
Oops.
And I guess, am I on? Good morning, everyone. This is Dan Smith. I'm from Boise, Idaho. And as far as weather, we're into our January thing that happens every year here in Boise. We have what's called an inversion, where the cold weather gets trapped down in the valley, but if you go up in the mountains, it's warmer in the mountains by about 10 to 20 degrees than it is down here in the valley. So haven't seen the sun for a couple weeks, hardly at all, and we'll get through it pretty quick though. So anyway, it's definitely winter here in Boise, Idaho. Thanks for everyone for coming.
Good morning. This is Sandy Root. A bit of a cold today. I was in frigid New York City last week and caught a bug, but I'm back in sunny Miami for a couple days now, and it's beautiful again here. So grateful to be back and looking forward to the discussion today.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody. So an inversion where it's warmer in the mountains and colder in the valley, that's something I haven't ever heard of before. And, maybe it's just because I don't watch the weather. But that
happens really here every year. Last year was really, really terrible. And yeah, we have a Bogus Basin ski resort is like 16 miles away from Boise, but it's like 45 degrees up there, and it's down around 30 degrees here.
Weird. That's completely weird. I mean, I guess that makes sense if cold settles low and heat rises, but that's just such an odd thing because you're so used to seeing like snow on the top of the mountains when it can be like warmer down below. But
then we have a blanket of clouds. We're completely enveloped in clouds here, and it's just just kind of a gray, dreary. Go shoot yourself in the head type of.
Don't do that.
No, it kind of bums everybody out because you don't see the sun for sometimes for a month at a time here.
Yeah, I could see how that would be kind of depressing. I get frustrated when I don't see the sun for like a day.
Yeah, so do I.
Well, let me jump over here to our event page and see who's hanging out with us this morning, and just welcome everybody. Okay, let's see here. So we've got Catherine says, Yes, why must, oh, she's answering the question. Okay, we'll get into that in just a second. So good morning, Catherine. Good morning, Sandy. Donna, welcome, welcome. Fabiana, good morning, everybody. Awesome. I'm glad that we have a number of people that are adding to our conversation. And before I read over here what Catherine answered, because I posted a question before we got started. Let me just go ahead and repost this question or speak this question. And you guys can, share your thoughts as well before we get into this conversation. So I said, tell us your thoughts. Why do you think it's so hard for people to be open to someone else's opinion if it's different from their own? So share with us, your thoughts on that. And because what we're studying right now, and let me switch my screen back over here. I know you guys can't see what I'm doing in the background, but I can, and I want to be able to see you guys. Okay, so like I said, we're in the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People in the Digital Age, and we're in part 3, which is how to merit and maintain others' trust. And in part 3, we're of chapter 2, which is never say you're wrong. And when when I created this event, I titled it, let's see, what did I title it? Let me go back up here so I can see the title of our event. And then I can kind of tell you why I said this. Okay, so how to make communication more productive and avoid the mistakes that could cost you thousands. And of course, this chapter talks a lot about communicating in an effective way so that everybody has an option to share their thoughts and opinions and add value to whatever it is that you are communicating about. Now, whether that is with your family and you're just trying to maybe come up with a good plan of what to do for the weekend, or or if it's with your spouse and you're trying to decide what you're going to do with your financial situation, or or you're in your relationship or whatever, or if it's with your coworkers and you're trying to negotiate doing a project and getting that project done in the most effective way, or if you're just talking to people online and you're just trying to get to know each other. There's some ways that are more effective to communicate than others, and of course in here it talks about not telling people that they're wrong. In the beginning of this chapter it gives this story about let's see, it's the NFL. Well, let's just kind of read this just a little bit. Okay, so Forbes did an article about the NFL in 2011 and how there was a revenue share dispute similar to another dispute that happened with the National Hockey League, and basically the owners were trying to get the players to take less money because they were talking about rising expenses and all that kind of thing, and because nobody would listen to each other, they kept just arguing about it the whole time, and everybody was all up in arms and nobody believed what the other party was saying and all of these different things. They ended up losing, let's see here, it was $2 billion in revenues were lost because they couldn't negotiate a deal that would work for everyone, and it's insane in my opinion to think that literally billions of dollars can be lost because you're not open to hearing the other person's side. And that's a sad thing, but it happens every day in many different situations. And I think that one of the biggest reasons is because people are so closed-minded to what someone else is saying that they literally won't even listen, right? And so that was kind of why I wanted to ask everybody, what do you think it is that causes people to be that way? And what are your experiences with that? I think that we've all been in situations where we've been very opinionated in one way or another and have just refused to listen, or just have failed to listen to whoever you're having a conversation with, or that sort of thing. And what happens when that situation arises. But let me just real quick before anybody jumps out, I want to read what Catherine wrote on here because she was kind of the first to jump in this conversation this morning. And hold on. Okay, good morning, Marlene. I see you jumped on. Awesome. Okay, let's see. So let me get back down here. Okay, so Catherine says, yes, why must we be right? LOL, I think it might come from survival instinct, like caveman days or something. If we are weak or wrong, we might be kicked out of the tribe and die out there on our own. The funny thing is, being right and forcing our opinion on others certainly does not contribute to the certainly does not contribute to the community. So I don't know where our wires get crossed, right? Exactly. Okay, so you guys jump out. Tell me what you think about this whole topic of being right or not being open to others' opinions. And by the way, good morning, Jason. Glad to have you back on.
Hey, good morning.
I think a lot of it just comes down to being vulnerable. You know, the ego that we have says I'm always right, and there's not room for me to possibly be wrong. And so, you know, that there's a threat there that, gosh, you know, maybe you're not right, you know. And in the pre-mastermind, I put something in there that I'd heard a leader clear back in the mid-'70s in another company, and in the company I was in back then, the first one I ever got into. But anyway, one of the things that he said, and I can't remember where he got it because he actually got it out of a book, but I don't remember what book it was. But anyway, the statement that he made was, "I may be wrong, and I frequently am," and it kind of opened up just avenue that a crack in the door, so to speak. But well, you know what? There is a possibility that I may be wrong here, you know, and you know, just being a big enough personality in and of yourself that you know what, doggone it, maybe I am wrong, you know, that there is always that possibility. But something else that I talked about a little bit in there was that the more I study the brain and how the brain works, you know, we all use different quadrants of the brain. And so you can have 10 people see an accident, and each one of them describes to the police officer the accident that they saw, and the police officer would say, well, gosh, you know, you just described 10 different accidents here, you know. And so the way that we view something and what actually happened from the perspective or from the angle that we've seen it from, that we could be right in what we actually did see, and that the other person could be just as right though as what we are because they've seen it from a different angle. So anyway, I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Yeah, I agree with what you were first saying, Dan. When you said it, I was thinking the same thing. You know, a lot of it is ego. We just don't want our ego to be crushed, and it feels like a threat if you know somebody's not agreeing with our opinion sometimes. And it's funny because I had a situation over the past week where I felt like accused of something, and I guess I could have, you know, in the past, it was interesting because I saw how I've changed. In the past, I may have lashed back and it would have just ended up creating an argument and anger, like in our last hangout, just all this stuff about anger. But I just looked at, okay, where are they coming from? And when I looked at his position and where maybe he saw why I was saying this, then I was able to come back in a calm way and say, okay, I can see what you're saying. And maybe I was wrong in what I said, but you know, and it sort of just like settled it. It was like, shoot. And it was so much easier if I had lashed back like I may have in the past. It would have just created this thing going forward in more of an anger state, and it just felt so much better to be able to be aware that we were seeing the situation in a different way, and I think we both ended up in the end respecting each other more because we honored each other's opinions, and we were able to just let it go and move on with our day. So yeah, just thought I'd add that on for now.
You know, one thing when we're opinionated or somebody else is being opinionated with us is that feeling it gives you, and it's not a good, healthy feeling that you get in your gut. You just kind of like heat up and your stomach's in turmoil, and it's not peaceful usually when we go that direction. And just like Sandy and Samantha and Dan, it's, you know, it's so much easier to stop yourself and think, I need to listen to their side of it. I've already got an opinion form. We immediately create, unfortunately, stories in our head, I think, a lot of times to map out the scenario the way we see it from our perspective. And somebody else with a completely different lifestyle or the way they were raised, they didn't have the same filters. Kind of said that in my comments about their religion or where they were raised in the world or their economics can so strongly affect their view of the world so differently than ours that we do have to stop, like you're saying, Sandy, and just take a minute to listen to their side of it. Doesn't mean we even have to agree with them, but sometimes just being quiet and letting them be correct in the situation is just the most peaceful way I've found. Took me a lot of years to understand that. I get hot and heated and have my opinions, but the older you get, the more you learn, I guess.
Can you hear me? Okay, great. Yeah, good points there, Danielle. Hey, I just want to say it's great to be back on here, and it's good to see you all, and thanks for everybody for attending. Yeah, I think that the communication breakdowns are going to happen, and if we're the side that can kind of slow it down and let the other know that hey, this isn't a competition, and we might be seeing it, might be actually an agreement, but just looking at it from different angles, that we can kind of step into our own power and help collaborate rather than compete with the people we're talking to. And why does it happen, you asked? I think sometimes it's because maybe the tension of the situation, or maybe you feel this urgency to just say something real quick, to have an answer. I've been dealing with a client that is exactly like that. He wants an answer, he wants it quick, and it's almost like you have to be anticipating his next thought in order to have an answer that is okay with him. But I've actually been using some of these techniques to sort of slow down the conversation, and maybe prefacing what I'm going to say next with, okay, I have 3 ideas, or we might be talking about the same thing here, so that the first thing that comes out of my mouth, they don't automatically go, no, that's not it, and get the wrong impression. So I think maybe the sense of urgency, and maybe we also, I think for me sometimes I formulate an idea and I want to just go ahead and get it out of my head and tell everybody before I lose it. So sometimes I think that can be taken the wrong way. So that might be another reason. That's it.
I like that idea, Jason, of coming forward with multiple possibilities versus just one option. I think that's a huge thing, because people tend to, when you just say one thing and it's like this is the end all be all answer, then people, they automatically kind of close off, because they're like, they may have a completely different idea on that. But I wanted to just share on here, because Danielle, she put a couple of quotes in here that I thought were really, really powerful, or a statement and then a quote, because she was talking about, let's see here, just when talking with someone else, she says statements like, I had not thought of this from that perspective. If you disagree with somebody, is that it's good to just acknowledge their opinion, even if you don't entirely agree with it. Just to acknowledge it. And I know a lot of us hear that, we kind of will hear people say, let's agree to disagree, and I think that's a good one too. It's just, if you can't come to an agreement, that's okay, because you don't have to have the same opinion as someone else. You don't have to be right, and they don't have to be wrong. It can be both. You can both be right. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that in the world we see all of these disagreements, and people are fighting with each other, and world wars are fought, and religious people are, one religious sect is upset at another one because everybody has these different opinions, and they think that you have to be right, or someone has to be right, that there's like it's only one or the other. What my question is why can't it be both? Why can't we all have different opinions and have that be okay? It doesn't have to be one way or another. And I think I think that's a key. If we can just be open to that possibility, I think that our whole world would be a better place. But Danielle also put in here, I thought this quote was really nice. She said, it's brave or bravo who conquers another, but he who conquers himself is supremely noble. He who is victorious over another may in turn be defeated, but he who overcomes himself will never be subdued. And I thought that that was a really important thing, because of course we're talking about, allowing other people to have an opinion. And so when you can overcome your compulsion to want to be right about everything and hold your tongue and allow other people to share their thoughts and opinions, you may actually learn something, and you may actually come to a new conclusion that you weren't coming to before. I like the story in here where it was talking about this one news company or media company that was trying to cover the Katrina disaster, and how they were trying to get out there and do it really, really quickly so they could be the first on the scene, the first covering everything. And they had all these departments go out, and then after it was kind of completed, as they came back, and they're all having all these issues because accounting's upset at production, and production's upset at the other departments, and they're all arguing with each other over who should take responsibility for this and who should take responsibility for that. And they actually had a person come in just to kind of be the negotiator, or to facilitate the conversation between the departments, because everybody came in with the attitude of I'm right, you're wrong, this is how it should be. And so she asked everybody at the beginning of this conversation, she says, ask yourself, I like everybody to take a moment and ask yourself this question: what could I have done differently during this assignment that would have helped the other departments succeed? And I love how she does that, because she actually makes everybody think about remember, we're all in this together. We're all in this one company working together for, an ultimate goal. How can we help each other versus how can, versus the whole idea of, you are the only one that has the right opinion, because we all have to work together, right? So that, I thought that was just really powerful. What do you guys think?
I was just looking through the book. Well, I actually have the other one in front of me right now, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I can't find my digital one at the moment, but I really like this part that I underlined. I think the chapters are similar, but there's a little bit of difference. Maybe this is in the digital one too, but the last time I read this book, I underlined this paragraph. You will never get into trouble by admitting that you may be wrong. That will stop all argument and inspire your opponent to be just as fair and open and broad-minded as you are. It will make him want to admit that he too may be wrong. And I think that was part of, the little, when I was talking about earlier with my friend, it was like, at one point I said, yeah, I see your point, and you're right, I might be wrong. And that also, it just changed everything, rather than in the past where I may have reacted and just to serve my ego. When I said I was wrong, it just, the energy shifted, and he sort of settled down too. And so it opens things up when we can look at other people's opinions and admit that we may be wrong. And it just opens the communication and the relationship. I think he, in that moment, felt a little bit more respect for me, and then in turn, when he softened, I could respect him more, rather than if we were just saying, you're wrong, and blah, 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 then it would have just snowballed into more discord and discomfort, and it just passed easy. And I think in the end, we, gained more respect for each other just by being open and admitting we're in different places and we have different opinions, and that one of us may be wrong, one may be right, but who cares? We're just where we are. So That's it for now.
I really liked this story a lot because it's amazing how everybody came in prepared to go to battle, and how this lady was able to disperse that. So sometimes what we might call a mediator can come in and cause that to happen as well, in different kinds of, because that's basically what I thought of when I was reading that story, that she was like a mediator. Sometimes we're like in your situation, Sandy, you know, we're our own mediators, but sometimes it does take the right kind of person to use foresight to dissolve a situation. And I really thought that the way she asked a question stopped everybody in their tracks to say, oh, wait a minute. Ultimately, what are we here for? It's not necessarily always just to be right in the argument. It's something that we feel passionately about, and because we have a viewpoint on it, we want to get it out there, and we want to contribute. It could come from that positive outlook as well. And I really feel like in this particular story, everybody had a valid part to it, and what's beautiful is that they were able to get themselves out of the way and put all of their thoughts together and actually become more of a strong team for one another. And I think that sometimes can collaborate. There's a saying that keep your friends close but keep your enemies closer. And in this situation, they might have seen each other as enemies, and many times, I don't know if any of you have read The Art of War or The 48 Laws of Power, and it talks about a lot of conflict throughout history with rulers and powers, and how when they've gotten themselves out of the way and they've taken the higher road, so to speak, and said, let me come from this viewpoint, it's actually changed courses of history or how things came together, and it benefited everybody in a more peaceful way.
Yeah, there was a business, and I'm trying to remember what the business was, just 2 or 3 years ago, and it had, I mean, it was a good sized business, and the employees was really going after the owners and you know, demanding more money and stuff like that. And having been a business owner, you know, for years myself, I understand there comes a point in time when it's like, you know what, to heck with it. And the business actually just folded up. It says, you know what, I'm done. You know, the owner says, I've had it. And that the employees didn't understand that, yeah, there does come a point in time when if you demand too much, that you've gone too far. And just like the hockey team, or the, you know, the dispute between the hockey players and the heads of the hockey association there, that $2 billion was lost throughout the, you know, the course of that season, because neither side was willing to give an inch. And, you know, or in the case of this other business I'm talking about, and I can't remember what the name of the business was, but it was a major player, you know, and the business owners just said, to heck with it, you know, we're going to shut it down. We're not going to negotiate here. You know, and so, you know, that's pretty radical, but there does come a point in time too, sometimes, where you know, the negotiations break down to the point where it can't move any farther. You know, that if the business itself isn't making money, then, you know, you know, we're not quite to communism yet here in the U.S., but I mean, it's heading that direction, you know. But there does come a point in time where if it's not in the business owner's best interest to, if there's not enough profit, I guess I'm saying, to keep the doors open, then the business will actually close. It will fold. And you know, I don't know where I'm going with this, but you know, just to break down the communications that both sides maybe need to give a little bit, you know. And kind of moving on, I did love the story later on and towards the end of this chapter, to where a gentleman was sharing a Bible verse, or what he thought was a Bible verse, and it wasn't a Bible. It was something that Shakespeare had written, and somebody else kicked, you know, Dale Carnegie was kind of up in the guy's face and saying, well, no, that's not in the Bible, you know. And another guy who was actually an expert in this type of thing kicked him under the table to keep his mouth shut. And later on, as they left together, and Carnegie asked him, "Why did you kick me under the table?" And he says, "Well, we were guests in somebody else's house, and it really wasn't your place to get into a big dispute and cause create a big ruckus here. Sometimes there does come a point in time where you may know in your heart, in your mind, that the person is wrong, but really, when you get right down to it, do you always have to bring it up and embarrass the other person and be this conquering king, so to speak, to shame the other person, to put them in their place or whatever, that it actually is sometimes it's more noble just to keep your mouth shut and just let it ride, let the other person have their place in the spotlight and take the back seat. So anyway, I'll turn it over to somebody else. Didn't mean to ramble so long. Sorry.
Well, that was good, Dan. Some good points. We all have an opinion, and we want to speak it, into the world. Those are just some great points. I think what Sandy said earlier, just about having respect for others' opinions. She was in that confrontation with her friend, or in that event. As soon as they had respect for each other's opinions, everything ran a lot smoother. So I think we open our minds, like they say in the book, when we come into these discussions, that we can see other people's perceptions a little bit better. And I think it's also pretty enlightening, and that it helps us to realize that not everybody thinks as we do. We might tend to tackle an issue from a different side, and that's okay. And it's also okay that other people don't see our perception right away. I think it helps us to realize that the same difficulty I'm having in seeing this person's opinion, then it goes without saying that they probably are having the same type of difficulty with mine. And then we can not only respect each other's opinion, but respect the process, and then appreciate that the other person is taking the time to really try to understand what we're saying. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just share a couple of comments that people have made on the page here real quick. Donna Allen says, never be afraid of sharing suggestions with anyone, etc. And absolutely, I completely agree with you, Donna. I think that it's important that we do share with each other, and also be open to other people's suggestions when they share them with us. That way we can all learn more and work together. I think that's kind of a big key right there, is that whole aspect of working together. Marlene says, my first marriage was very tough, 28 years of emotional and verbal abuse, so never dared state my view. Michael and I have great discussions. However, I moved to control and blame. Then a few years ago, I realized I was overcompensating for my not getting the chance to share my point of view. Now I allow and realize everything is a choice. I do not have to be engaged in negative or response that would not solve issues. Gosh, that's such a great point, Marlene. I love how you brought up the fact that, of course, from one marriage you felt like you couldn't ever say your mind or anything, and then you came into your new marriage, and then you kind of brought some of that forward with you, where now all of a sudden you feel like you're overcompensating. But I'm glad that you're able to realize that, and I think that's a huge thing, because we all, when we realize what we're doing, we have that opportunity to change it so that we can be a better version of ourselves, and also have better relationships with our family and friends and colleagues and everyone for that matter. And I noticed that I do a little of the same kind of thing. I tend to be very opinionated in a lot of things when discussing things with my husband and my family, and and sometimes I don't let him have a word in edgewise. I think we tend to kind of do that. One thing I was thinking about here just a moment ago, and I can't remember what triggered me to think about it, but was, isn't it interesting how with our family, sometimes we're more closed-minded to hearing what our family members have to say than what, like, say, our friends or colleagues have to say. I think we see this a lot in, like, parent-child relationships where you tell your child one thing, you say, this, don't do this because of this, that, and the other, or you should do this, or this thought process, or whatever. We have these opinions about what our children should do, and our children look at us like we're crazy, right? But then next thing you know, they come back a week later and they say, hey, my best friend said such and such and such and such, and so I'm going to do such and such and such and such. And you're like, I just told you that. You didn't even listen to me. But I think that's kind of funny, right? How we have the different dynamics with different people in our lives. But Catherine has a comment on here too. Hold on, let me get back over here so I can read that. Okay, Catherine says, Marlene, I'm sorry, I completely understand. Being in an abusive relationship causes a lot of pent-up emotions that unfortunately come out and unopportune times, and often with the people we feel safe with. It is good to recognize, though, learning to repress is what kept us alive, but keeping stuff repressed is what kills us in the long run. Tricky thing this life is. Glad you found love again. That's awesome, Catherine. I think that that's so very, very true. Okay, let's see here. Oh, then Catherine also says, the strange thing is people will fight, go to war over the truth in their opinion, yet honestly, who cannot admit that many things that they once thought were truth turned out not to be, LOL. I know I have adamantly defended stances that I later found out were entirely false. Glad I didn't start a war, kill someone over it. Amen to that, Catherine. And I know exactly what you're saying. I mean, just less than, 100 years ago, if we think about just in our own history, all the things that were thought to be, wrong or bad behaviors or just, evil or whatever, and here we are, so many years later, and so many more people have opened their minds to the possibility that, maybe these things aren't just all set in stone. Maybe it's okay for us to, whatever it happens to be. I mean, there's so many different things, and I'm sure we could all think of different examples of, things that used to be considered wrong that now are not so much wrong. Like, tattoos, for instance. Here's just one silly little thing. Way back when, if you had a tattoo, you were considered a complete lowlife, right? Well, now, how many people have tattoos? Like, a lot more than used to. I mean, every different class of people, if you will, there's always people that have tattoos. And so, but way back when, you were a carny or something, right? You considered like some kind of a low life, or and now it's it's not really that big of a deal, or body piercings or whatever, I mean, just little stuff like that. But I have a train, so I'm going to let you guys talk while the train goes by.
That is so true, how our opinions have changed over the course of life. I was just thinking of how they once thought the world was flat. Well, we've proven the world is not flat. And that was, I'm trying to think of who had originally said that the world was round, not based on the Bible already saying it, but just in general. You guys can help me out with that one. But he actually was thrown in prison and was just treated horribly. Throughout the centuries. A lot of people that were incredible people that were condemned at one point in life, a century later, they're considered a hero, and they're in museums, and their thoughts and things are now solid proof of truth. And that has happened so many times. And so we're always evolving our opinions. So, it's really hard. There was a word in here. I looked it up actually because they used it when they were talking about the NHL, and it was the word. Oh, now I can't even find the word in the. Oh yes, entrance. That's a really good one. You guys know which word it was. It was intransigence. And really what that means is bullheaded, hard-headed, pig-headed, self-opinionated or stubborn, and how many times, we understand those words that we've met somebody that has that personality type, and they're not a happy person most of the time when you meet them. So, we have to be open. I never want to be called a pighead or stubborn or bullheaded. I'll let somebody else on the floor.
Trying to formulate my thoughts here. The older that I get, the less that I sweat certain things. I don't know if that makes sense, but I see a book every once in a while. My wife loves to go to the thrift store. She buys fabric all the time because she's a quiltaholic, so she's always making quilts. And she looks for fabric. I go straight to the bookshelves, and now I've lost my train of thought. There's a book title, and I had it a second ago. Now it's gone. I'm having a senior moment here.
Don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah. And it's all small stuff. That's the name of the title. Don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff. So, thank you. but things that 30 years ago I'd have stuck my dukes up and fought it out with you. It's like, what? I don't care anymore. It really doesn't matter. You can have a family discussion, 3 or 4 or 5 family members in a room someplace in your house, and pretty soon they're ready to kill each other over something. And you know what? Outside of this room, it makes no freaking difference. Nobody cares. You know what I mean? And so why get your underpants in a wad? Why get all angry at each other and bring out all these angry emotions when it's not going to make any difference in the grand scheme of things? But it took me a long time to come to a point to understand that, and quite often I just keep my opinions to myself because nobody really particularly wants to hear them anyways. So anyways, I'll turn it over to somebody that can make more sense than what I make.
What Catherine was saying reminded me of, when I was a child, I was very shy, and I would never express my opinion because I thought, I didn't want to be told that I was wrong. I didn't want to be criticized for anything, so I would never say anything. But it was like people would always say, well, what's your opinion? What's your opinion? It's like people are looking for that. And I learned as I got older to share my opinion, for collaborative efforts and stuff like that. And, people love to hear opinions. And but on what Catherine was saying, I realized, I think, too, during that time when I was afraid to share my opinions, that if I did share my opinion, I realized that it was always changing. Like, what is the real truth? Like, even I would question my own opinions. Like, is this really my opinion, or did I get this from someone else, or something I heard in the news, or, what really is my opinion? So it was like I didn't want to share my opinion, and sometimes I still don't, because I'm like, I don't even know what the truth is right now. I don't even sometimes know what my own opinion is. So if I say this now, will it be like Sandy's this forever? Can I change his opinion down the road? It's an interesting thing how the opinions can change and the truths can change like that, even within ourselves. So just thought that was interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Catherine. It made me think of some old things.
Samantha and I came on at the same time. Who's going first? Go ahead, Samantha.
Well, we've got a couple of comments on the event page, so let me read those real quick, and then you can go. Okay, so Tiberius says, and by the way, welcome, Tiberius. I saw you got on a little bit late. That's great. We're glad to have you. Tiberius says, great hangout on what I'd call critical conversations. When the impact of outcomes resulting from decisions and agreements are highest between 2 or more parties, i.e. marriage partners, boss and employee, political leaders of nations, the level of criticalness arises. Learning how to navigate these waters in a balanced and skillful way makes the difference in resulting consequences. And that is so true. I mean, just like we've kind of talked about previously in these different stories and the different situations, is that, yeah, I mean, if you come to the table with a closed mind, then and only assuming that you are the only one that has a right at it, or you have the right answer, or you're the only one that knows the true the best outcome or whatever it is, then yeah, you're not going to have as good of as good of results in that negotiation as you would if you both come to the table with an open mind. And in here it talks about, let's see here, it says negotiations become more productive when each party acknowledges that the other may have legitimate concerns. And then it goes on to say, let's see here, where was that? The truth is that disagreement is more often a small crack in the sidewalk that can easily be negotiated if we can come to the discussion table with a more open mind. And I just love that, because you know, if we're able to be open to the other person's opinion, just like in that conversation with the media, and how every department had their own opinion and they thought they knew the best way, but once they began to be open to what other people's thought processes were, they started looking at things from another person's perspective, then everything went so much better, and they were actually able to accomplish something. And that's kind of another thing there, is that if we are not open to another person's opinion and thoughts, is that you know, that being closed off is what keeps us from moving forward, or keeps us from accomplishing much more greater things in our lives and our relationships. Okay, and then let's see here. Catherine also says, haha, guess Dr. Phil was right. Do you want to be right or married or in whatever relationship? It is definitely harder for green and red personalities to let errors be spoken without correcting someone. It's almost an OCD kind of thing, just like how their mind works. And that, I love that, how you say, do you want to be right or do you want to be married? And that's so true, because, you know, if you are all so focused on being right in every situation, then you're actually not allowing that other person to be who they want to be. And if you're not allowing that other person to be themselves, and you're not allowing them to speak their mind, you're not allowing them, because you're so concerned about being right all the time, that you're just basically pushing that person away as if they don't matter. And that is definitely going to cause that relationship to fail. So yeah, that, I just wanted to share those. But go ahead and jump on, Danielle. I know you had stuff you want to share too.
Yeah, and you just brought up a valid point, because I think it's an emotional attachment to our feelings and opinions as well. And if we allow our ego to get in there, we allow that hurt feeling that maybe we're not being validated correctly, and that goes in marriage many times. We have to give and take. It's not always 50-50, it's 90-10. I always used to say that when I was married. I said a lot of the time it was a 90-10 marriage, because it was just the way it made it peaceful. And I just shared this with a friend the other day. We were having a talk, and she wrote it down, and it's people's opinions of me is none of my business. The only opinion that really matters to me is my opinion of myself. And if you can keep that in your mind, thinking that my opinion's most important to me, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, because it's really none of our business what they think of us, and we don't need to express to them our opinion of them either, because it does, when it comes down in it, like Dan was saying, you know, the older we get, a lot of the stuff that we think is important really doesn't matter.
Yeah, good, Daniel. Working. I haven't been on this call or this webinar for a couple weeks now, because I've been working with that client who's, you know, constantly, you know, wanting me to be pulled away from one job and then to the next, and then always wants me to come up with the answer right away. And you know, in situations, sometimes we have to sit back and say, well, what is the outcome that I want? And you know, and with every small task that this particular person puts me on, I have to ask myself, well, what is the main, you know, what is the main objective? What, you know, what's important here? And listen to the person to hear, well, where is he coming from? Is this something that is heartfelt, that he, you know, he wants it done a certain way specifically, or is this one of those situations where he has an opinion he wants to discuss? And I think a lot of it depends on the words we use. When I read the title of this hangout, and I wasn't familiar with this particular chapter yet, and I saw "Never say you're wrong," I immediately said, "Well, that I can't be reading that right," because you know, and that's sort of how I've, with age, I've sort of taken on that line of thinking. Is if I see something that doesn't agree with what my ingrained philosophies are, I have, instead of thinking, oh well, they're wrong, I'm thinking I must be either reading that wrong or interpreting that wrong myself. And that gives me the breathing room I need not to get stressed out about it, and to really to tackle it with an open mind. So that's one little strategy that I've used. But it did. When I read that never say you're wrong. It made me think also that it does depend on the words we use. So when we want to present our opinion, we might want to first think, well, am I presenting my opinion because I want this person to now believe my opinion is right, or am I really presenting my opinion because I just want to discuss it and further understand their opinion as well? And I think we can do that by switching the words around when we're talking about it, our opinions. I had a discussion with some friends who they like to use some words that I don't care to even be around or hear. And I was telling them in a way, trying to tell them in a way that, hey, okay, I understand you're not wrong in the reasons why you think it's okay to say these words, but for me, that in what I've found, and the way I see it is, in changing the words, that instead of saying I think you should do this or that, to the word I, and making it more about, well, this is just what I believe, and this is just why I believe it, and you can kind of take it or leave it. It's not that I totally disagree with what you're saying, but that this is why I've taken on this opinion, and knowing, like you're saying, as we get older, we're a little bit, we don't sweat the small stuff, as Dan said, and being well grounded in our own philosophies, that we don't feel like we have to push back when someone disagrees, or maybe doesn't perceive things the way we do. So I think all that kind of helps in having effectual communication. So those are just a few tips I wanted to bring up. I think everything you guys are saying is great, and I wish I had thought of it. But anyway, that's my 2 cents.
I think from my perspective, the fastest way for you to make me angry is to say just flat out, you're wrong, and so from that perspective, the quickest way to break down a negotiation with somebody else is to use that terminology on them, that, hey, you're wrong, just like the book says, that maybe there's a more delicate way to come at it from a different angle, so just my 2 cents. I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Tiberius put another comment on the page, and he says, yes, sometimes saving a nation, saving a marriage, saving a job can mean to just call a truce and come back another day to deal with the issues. LOL. Absolutely. Absolutely. I do want to kind of, we've only got a few minutes left here. I just want to read a little bit from the end of this chapter and kind of, just summarize some of what we've said here. It talks about after this story of Carnegie and the Bible quote, or it turns out that it was a a Shakespearean quote, and he was trying to call that guy out on it. But ultimately, the lesson that he learned, he was, telling people they are wrong will only earn you enemies. Few people respond logically when they are told they are wrong. Most respond emotionally and defensively because you are questioning their judgment. You shouldn't just avoid the word "you're wrong." You can tell people they are wrong by a look or an intonation or gesture, so you must guard against showing judgment in all ways that you communicate. And if you are going to prove anything, don't let anybody know. And then it goes on, it says, while you in fact might be right and the other person wrong, there is no sense in denting a person's ego or permanently damaging a relationship. Always default to diplomacy. Admit that you may be wrong. Concede that the other person may be right. Be agreeable. Ask questions, and above all, consider the situation from the other person's perspective and show that person respect. Such a humble approach leads to unexpected relationships, unexpected collaboration, and unexpected results. And I thought that was just a good way to kind of summarize this conversation, because if you can't get past your own opinions and allow for other people to have opinions, and you're so caught up in knowing that you're right and having to be right out there all the time, then you're not really opening yourself up to have good relationships with other people. And one of the things that I also wanted to just kind of touch back on again, what Sandy was saying about questioning your own truths too, because from one year to the next, or even months, or just over time, we learn when we open ourselves up to other people's thoughts and opinions and beliefs and all of that kind of thing, is then we can question our own beliefs, and we can question, is what I am actually believing, is this thought process something that was, programmed to me or given to me by someone else? Did I learn it someplace else and just take it as the word of God just because my parents said it, or just because I heard it in school, or just because of, hearing it somewhere, or is that actually my opinion? Is that my experience? And I think that that's a big thing right there, is just to kind of look at yourself and be like, what is my actual experience in this situation versus am I just regurgitating what somebody else said? So anyway, that's kind of the wrap up for this chapter. Does anybody want to add anything else before we close our conversation for today?
Yeah, let's throw something in real quick. I was on a training, listening to a training yesterday, and it's along the same lines of what several discussions in the past that other people have talked about. I know Catherine's talked about it a lot. But if you assign a color to different personalities, that we all have a color, and so that's like a bent that we come from, a mindset that we come from. And so you got a red talking to a yellow, or I don't remember all the colors right off the top of my head, but anyway, that one person is really a laid-back person, that they're kind of the hippies from the 70s type of situation, kind of this just whatever dude, type of an attitude. And then you got a red that's real fiery, that they are going to butt heads, because that is the bent that they come from. That is, and that's a mind. That's something that you're born with. That's it's the way that you use your brain. It's not something that you necessarily have any choice over. It's because that's where you come from. And so when you got two different personality types like that butting heads, and then as I've said earlier, that there's 4 major quadrants to your brain, and one person will use one quadrant, another person will use a different quadrant, and so you're not always going to agree, but just I think somebody said earlier, agree to disagree. That I'm confident in what I believe, but I don't necessarily have to beat you over the head with it to the point where you believe that I believe, what I believe. A person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still, so to speak. So anyways, yeah, sometimes there just has to be room for I'm going to keep my opinion, you keep yours, and that doesn't mean we can't still be friends, or that doesn't mean that we can't negotiate, find some center ground here. But there are some things that are non-negotiable, but that doesn't mean that we can't cooperate with each other, so to speak. So anyways, that's it from Boise.
Good point, Dan. I think there are some times when things are non-negotiable. You don't want to compromise uh, with your mate, with your if there's something particular that you can't live with. You need to come to terms, and communicate about it. But that's, I guess, like I was saying earlier, determine what is important. Is it, do we have to agree on the opinions that we have, or are we, what is the outcome that we want out of that collaboration? So, hopefully, with an open mind, we can look towards the things that we can agree about, and not focus on those things that we don't agree about, and move things forward in a good way. So, that's all I wanted to say about that.
Anybody else have anything? Yep.
It's always fun to, we could talk about this probably all day. And I think just, it's the colors, Dan, definitely, and it's also just, it's formulated from when we're small. A lot of our opinions based on how we were treated, like Sandy was saying, I didn't have anything valuable to add, so I just was really quiet. And I just love all the participation today. I just wanted to say that's my opinion on this hangout.
That's great. You guys rock.
Awesome conversation today, guys. I do want to thank everybody for coming and hanging out with us this morning. We've had a lot of awesome comments and thoughts and opinions on our conversation, and I just love that. And, for those of you who are brand new to our Saturday Morning Mastermind, as we do this almost every Saturday. I'm not going to say every Saturday, because we do take a few days off here and there for family reasons or whatever, but for the most part we get together every Saturday and we're discussing one book or another. It just so happens that we're studying the book How to Win Friends and Influence People in the Digital Age by Dale Carnegie. And by the way, guys, if you don't have this book, I've put a link in the description here for this event page that can take you over to, I think it's on Amazon, but I saw that you can get some books over there for like $4.57, so you may be able to still get that by going directly through that link. So get the book if you don't have it already. We're only about halfway through it, so we've got a good way to go, and I know there's a lot of great and awesome and valuable information in this book still for us to cover. So meet us here again next week. It's SaturdayMorningMastermind.com. We'll always bring you to the correct event page, and if you're not a part of our community, jump over to mindsetmasterycollective.com. That is our Google Plus community. You can add your thoughts and opinions, share your, any kind of personal development, post, blog post, quotes, inspirational information, that sort of thing, and then participate in our pre-mastermind discussion for next week. So with that, guys, have a great day and have a wonderful, awesome, and amazing weekend, and we will see you next week on our Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.
Bye.